can't think of her name. There is an actress who's in some of the Hallmark movies, black actress, and she and her husband has an autism child. And she makes sure that every time they do a movie or whatever, as a matter of fact, they have a movie that's going to be coming out about them and their autistic child. And they advertise uh, autism and trying to get people, they're advocates of the autism program and trying to get people to do it. But I just cannot, for the life of me, think of her name right now. But I think, I think, I think, uh, what's my man name? Pete. Oh, I can't think of it right now.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna have it before we leave tonight. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Now, that's a very important point, and I think from that standpoint, we need to take an active role with, how, I mean, what are the standards for character and behavior? How do we support people who are challenged by that? I mean, how do you come to know? I mean, because the police, when they encounter a child or kid who's faced with those kind of conditions, they automatically consider them to be a perpetrator, and then they take actions to arrest them. Especially in the Black community, they look at the child and say, oh, he's committed an egregious act. And you don't know where people are like that. You don't know what, now I don't know how my friend, this baffles me, and I have to talk to him and ask him about this. But he was able to get, my friend, I won't say his name, but he was able to get his brother into the Army and out of the Army with an honorable discharge. He was able to get him in the Army and out of the Army with an honorable discharge. I don't know how he did that. I really can't explain it, but I mean, and I'm really, it's wonderful. It's actually wonderful that he was able to do that. But, as it were, that's a curious point. Is there research on this? Did the census do an analysis of what the numbers look like? In our population, the 330 million people in America, how many children, youth, and adults, have faced with those complications? And, and what can we do as a culture to at least...
There are figures. 2% or more of the population is on the autism spectrum.
Wow. That's
yes,
pretty high.
It is pretty high. And that doesn't, and then there's additional people with intellectual disabilities that don't carry an autism diagnosis. So it's a significant piece of the population. And yeah, so it's known. There are organizations who are working toward this. One solution will not fit all. Ours is just one piece that would work.
And we as a culture end up just lumping everybody together, and different people are faced with different conditions. Like in the DC area, there's St. Elizabeth's, and where anybody who's just, anybody who's more than a nickel short, go there. They go there, And then there's in North Carolina here, we have Ovarian Cherry Hospital. And then what is that in New York? What is that? Saint something is a hospital center. And now, I mean, and these are psychological cases where people had a full dime when they were born. I'd hate to, pardon my, colloquialisms. I'm just trying to make sure that simple is better. So I mean, but how do we get there? As a matter of fact, we did have a guest on, about 6 months ago, and she lived in Utah. And all of her kids were labeled with a psychotic and behavioral condition that she couldn't, they said it had something to do with the bacteria, and so, but it's just interesting that way. So let's move on.
Donna, do you have a dog or a cat? That's adorable.
Well, just a minute, Brother Caldwell, the lady's name is Holly Robertson Peete.
All right. I know Holly Robinson. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Holly Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Didn't know
Yes, and
that.
her husband was a baseball player. He's a
Football.
retired baseball player.
Football, right? He plays football.
Wow.
Baseball.
Well, we need to see that movie then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good,
And
Nancy.
she's very very active in this autism thing. So the thing is, I think what you can do is start really reaching out to other, like I said, blasting it out, to different organizations and try to hook up, and you can probably get some type of connection with other organizations. I was looking online here. North Carolina has an autism association. So
Really?
yes, and so
Yeah.
so it is being looked at, and people are considering and trying to find different advocacy programs for it and stuff. So
You remember
Yeah.
Dorothea Dix? Remember Dorothea Dix?
I remember Dorothea Dix.
Yeah.
She's going to name the hospital out.
That facility in Raleigh.
Yeah. Mhm.
So-
Yeah,
Well,
there's a
really-
National Autism Society, and there's the Autism Society of America. There's a lot of state organizations and local organizations. But yeah, there are a lot, but the solution is not there yet.
I know what you're saying. Most of them are just independent and really working within themselves, as opposed to trying to stretch out and gain some power from being a collective group.
Well, I think one of the problems is a lot of it is families. Unless you were closely associated, then you don't understand it.
Right.
And the problem is a lot of us are completely occupied by these very challenging behaviors
Right.
that we can't leave. And so the families are kind of, what do I want to say? Their hands are tied
Right.
as far as getting out and doing things. So yeah, it's not powerful. It has been a powerful place for support groups and activities and social things, but as far as these solutions that cost a lot of money, it hasn't been.
Right. And I agree with you on that, because you're trying to establish a community.
Right.
You're trying to establish a place where they can go and
Right.
live a normal life, as opposed to being institutionalized.
That's right.
Okay.
Let's don't confuse mental illness with people with a developmental disability.
Right.
You got two different things going on there. So you're talking about Cherry Hospital and Dorothea Dix. They have been more focused on people with mental illness. And that these individuals might not have a mental illness, but let's don't get those two disabilities confused.
That's right.
Yeah. No, you're right, Nancy. And I think what appealed to me about Kathy's presentation was the process to get diagnosed and to recognize it is so hard. And then, as Donna was talking about the Lady Vet event, where people can't even get disability. It takes months and months to get through that process, get a doctor, get a screening. And, by the time it could be a year or two, and it's very, very real. So if you have autism, or you have a friend, or you're a caregiver, or someone in your world, send us a comment so we can pray for them, or we can refer them to agencies like Kathy's and help you get resources, even if it's just information, because information is key, and getting it to you in a timely fashion that could help you with that condition.
That sounds like it may be part of the problem, is the specific and proper diagnosis. There's no, for the most part, most states don't have specific and proper diagnosis. So they categorize everybody under one roof. And these things need to be analyzed a little more accurately.
Yeah.
I think that the healthcare varies from place to place, but children who are severely affected, like my son, it's not subtle. It's something where, they get their diagnosis young. What the ones who are quote unquote higher functioning are the ones that struggle even as an adult at why they don't fit in. And why, when they're struggling, they get in trouble for various things, and they have a late diagnosis. But I don't think that there's, and I think the bigger problem is that, you know, the groups that are supposed to serve them, like social services, they have no idea.
Right.
They really don't. Autism is really different, really different. And so that's the complicating thing. It's a lack of understanding, which is why we want to make these videos sort of a good neighbor library, so that people can look through and open their minds to different human experiences that are different. You know, like for my son, people coughing is probably like fingernails on the chalkboard for me. You know, so he's afraid, he's very anxious in groups because somebody might cough at any minute. You know, he's afraid, you know, cars starting is another sound. So he will run blindly through a parking lot because he's afraid someone's going to start their car. Yeah, there's a lot of different things, and every one of these people is different. And where we're really missing out is there's very little research on adults,
Yeah.
almost none. We don't really know what to expect.
That's right.
And there's not many studies going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
keep at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep
Thank
promoting
you so
it,
much for your
And thank you for,
presentation.
we are talking about
yeah.
autism
We got
today.
one-
Thank you.
We have a speaker that we want to present tonight.